thank you, David, for being here with us tonight. David Pereira is a passionate product leader with more than a decade of product management experience. So he has lots of stories to share, and I'm sure he will share something with us tonight. He's also focused on catching teams to deliver the highest value to their customer while driving desired business outcomes. So it's very interesting from my point of view. I'm here eager to learn more and more. And one of his hobbies is writing, and I strongly suggest to follow his newsletter, Untrapping Product Teams, which is out on Substack. It's plenty and full of interesting stuff. So it's a good reading, I think. It's in a weekly basis. And David, do you want to add something about you before starting?
I think that summarize. I would say that one of the things is I share a lot on social media and so on, but I generally like sharing where I screwed up because that's where people can learn the most. So sometimes exposing yourself is what helps the other grows and helps you reflect also. So this is one thing I like doing a lot, sharing stories with others.
Love that. Share those failures, celebrate them, because those are learning opportunities. Really looking forward to the session today. Hopefully anyone who shared that they had stuck teams on the left-hand side, I'm hoping that David is going to share some ways you can help those teams become untrapped, unstuck. One thing before we start, we do record these sessions, folks, so that we can put it on our YouTube channel so that others that aren't able to make it today for whatever reason can rewatch. So if you aren't comfortable with having your face shown for whatever reason, then just drop yourself off and perhaps rewatch the session later. But just a little note on confidentiality there. We don't share anything openly, but these sessions are recorded. David, over to you.
Cool. Let's start like this. Over the last 15 years, there's something that I learned that I've seen spread all over the place. And I say it's called expectation and reality. And product management, this thing, they generally go in opposite direction. And I want to give you 3 examples. You are hired as a product manager. And you're going to be the CEO of the product. That's your expectation. You're going to make decision, what happens next, which problems get solved, how you solve the problem, which problems you don't solve, what is important to do now, and so on. But then you hit the corporate firewall, the roadmap, prescriptive ones, timelines, stakeholders pressure. And what happens? At best, you become the CEO of the backlog. Everything that matters is keeping the backlog full of things that nobody needs, but everyone wants, and you keep it full and you ensure that the feature factor teams are running. So your role, instead of being the CEO of the product, is to feed the beast. So you need to ensure it is running. Doesn't matter where it is running to, but it is running. But what happens with product designers? Well, product designers, they are excited to create intuitive designs. They want to create user experience that is outstanding. It's natural to users, not rational, something that they can use easily and learn how to use it without talking to anyone, that makes their lives better. That's what they want to do. But then they start working and they realize that success for them means creating pixel perfect designers that stakeholders, internal ones, can approve. And they are fine with that. And then you just throw the design over the fence, and then software engineers will implement that. It's a very sad result. I say that they move from product designers to pixel perfect designers. It's more like a bug than a feature and needs a hot fix. What about the software engineers? They are hired and very excited to create maintainable, scalable, and clean code, something that they want to be proud of. Once it's running into production, they know it's never going to break. And they can tell everyone how beautiful the code is, how nice it smells. But then they receive this roadmap with 737 items to deliver. They don't even know where to start. and they receive this unbearable amount of pressure, and they move from software engineer to coders. All that matters is coding. Delivering features at the speed of light is the definition of success. And suddenly, everyone is complaining because the code doesn't smell nice. Actually, it stinks. And it's anything but maintainable because the technical debt is scaling and no one wants to touch that. It's very sad. And what I realized after these 15 years of experience is it doesn't matter which job you have in a product team. I gave 3 examples, but I could continue. Chris would be able to give better examples about Agile quotes with me, but I will stick only with this. But what I realized is the following. No matter where you are going to face traps. And that's normal. The difference is what are you going to do about it? How do you move from a trapped team to an untrapped one? And this is the reason I created untrapped product teams. Because I was trapped many times. Because I was ill-equipped. I didn't even know I was trapped. And sometimes I was the reason trapping teams. So I thought that delivering more output, increasing velocity was the measure I should follow. And I pressured the team to do more of that. I just didn't know it was the wrong measure. So it takes a while. And I have been reflecting what is the real challenge of doing product management. And I think the real challenge of doing product management is doing product management because everyone around you is going to push you in different directions. And it's very easy to end up doing something that is nothing but product management. Super challenging. So for today, I don't want to make you feel powerless. I want to help you recognize potential challenge ahead of you, traps as I call, and give you some hints on what you can do today for a better tomorrow. So that's what this talk is all about, to equip you for change. So now let me start sharing what I would like to bring it to you. All right. So I see that it's available. Let's start talking about a normal environment here. My screen just disappeared. Here. So there is something that's called company, organization. If you're in a bigger company, just imagine it is a department there. It's a unit inside a company. All companies have something in common. They will have teams. There will be the leadership team somewhere, or the top management, or some guys like that. There will be other teams like customer service, marketing, operations, and so on. And what happens with all of the teams? All of them have something in common. They have the most brilliant ideas in the whole world. They know what best to go into the product. All of them, including the product teams. Product teams also have ideas. But the product team has a different job, has to manage this guy here, the product backlog, and has to interact with all the other stakeholders and define what is the most relevant idea for now. And you see, there's a multitude of possibility. In a normal scenario, the product team would struggle to select one of the ideas, but eventually something is going to go out, the team will work on and will create a beautiful, shiny new feature. It is amazing. But if you look at this picture, there's something missing here. It was done inside out, the beautiful new feature. And once it's presented to the customers, what happens? They look at that and they say, huh? What is this for? What is it needed? Why do I need that? I don't understand what that is created. So this is a big problem that I see spread all over the place. And unfortunately, I used to think this was just an exception when I had my first job as a product manager, I think more than a decade ago. And then as I moved to a different place, I saw the same thing happen all over again. And I say like this, we create solutions that we love and end users couldn't care less about it. And it's a very sad outcome. This output-driven mindset that creates things from inside out without involving users leads to a tragic fate, which we need to avoid that. And if we start thinking in the more depth how this happens, I will give you the two scenarios, the dangerous one and the beautiful one. Let's start with the dangerous one, that is the most common one. You start with a lot of ideas. So it always starts the same. There's a lot of ideas, and that's fine. The question is, what are you going to do next? In a normal scenario, it is about picking the winner. So there's a lot of work here to identify the winner. This is where you start seeing very complex prioritization frameworks, a long discussion to define what to work on next. But eventually, after weeks or months, you select something to work on next, and then you design. And what happens during this design? The design, it is about getting something to a pixel perfect state that internal stakeholders that are not users can approve. So when you have the right tonality of blue, the buttons have the right corners, very beautiful, very precise, have the lines and the right width and so on, then you can approve. And what do you do next? You test. But at this point, you are already highly invested. And the idea here is to test your ideas, but you are going to confirm all of the biases because you invest too much time. You don't want this thing to fail. You are going to listen to the noise and ignore the sign. So the design will improve a little bit, but only what you wanted to listen. The other things you're not going to test. And then what do you do with this? You just throw over the fence and expect software engineers to create something out of that. Of course, there will be conflict because they were not involved in the beginning. They will have to cut corners. They won't do as it is in the design because they won't have the time for that. And then, eventually, after some back and forth with the designers and so on, this gets done. And then it goes live and it launches. And what happens the moment this is live? It goes live and you have just created the most beautiful piece of crap ever. And then everyone loves that, right? Of course not. No one's going to use that because you didn't involve the end users. This setup here is a suicide. But then, what is the real problem here? It takes a lot of time for you to get crap live, and you only realize it's crap once it's live. What do you do next? If you repeat this, chances are high that you're going to create crap again. And I don't think people want to do that. Because this approach here is ultra slow. You're going to create a lot of waste before you can hit the winner, and everyone is going to be demotivated. No one likes creating something that nobody uses. It is frustrating to everyone. And this doesn't help. It's really, really bad. So this is something that needs change. And this is about the question we ask. I see that the normal question is asking, how fast can we deliver something? Or how can we accelerate delivery speed? That's the question I asked for a long time. I was a big fan of maximizing velocity. Believe it or not, I was promoted because I was a good velocity maximizer. Yeah, that's embarrassing, but that was 10 years ago. And the truth is, 9 out of 10 ideas will fail. You don't need to take my word on that. You can just Google it and you're going to find a lot of studies. For example, all the startups that start now won't exist 90% of them in 5 years. Only 10% will make it. Because that's how it is. Because most of our ideas, they are flawed. They don't work. But funny enough, once we move from a startup to a business, we start thinking differently. We believe that our ideas, they are perfect. They are going to work. We just need to get them live. And that's not reality. Reality is that we need to ask a different question. A better question is this one. How fast can you drop bad ideas? Because you want to identify the crap ones so that you can focus on the good ones. That's the magic. And what happens in reality is that teams are generally trapped in the feature factory, and then they don't have the time to drop the bad ideas. And I want to run a check here with you. So you have this Mentimeter, which I will also send the link to make it easier. And then we're gonna just test it. How it's your scenario. So let me just bring this one here, and then we can see how it is. And I will also present this one. Let me just share this tab here. We have a conversation around this one. I've done this one several times already, and I always get some funny results. So here is how often do you just observe the following. And clearly I put inverted what is it's desirable. So output over outcome. That means creating features without measuring their impact is what drives value. And I'm not saying output instead of outcome, because we need the output to have outcome. But when we prioritize the output first is dangerous. And this tends to happen quite often. So what I'm seeing here is quite high numbers of what we would not like to see. And we could look at these and say, you're screwed up. And I would say, we have a lot of opportunities to change the game for the better. So this is a way of seeing. I don't like looking at this kind of results and saying, we are trapped and we are there forever. We may be trapped right now, but we can transform this for the better. Because the second one, for example, opinions over evidence. If you start collecting some evidence, it is very hard to neglect reality, but you need to do the job. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. The roadmap. It is common to have prescriptive ones instead of embracing the unknown, but that's not helpful for us to uncover the others. So I'm going to give you some hints on how to change this. Just commenting here on the others, meeting deadlines over achieving goals. I think deadlines are good to set some constraint to lead teams to focus on the right things, to make some decisions. But the overarching aspect is to achieve the goal, not to meet the deadline and cutting corners. And implementing solutions without knowing the problem is quite dangerous. So we need to start with the problem. And this can be misinterpreted. Just pay attention that I put the word over, I didn't say instead of. What we want to see more is the inverted thing. We want to see more outcome over output, evidence over opinions, and so on. These are aspects that I think it's valuable for us to start challenging and then move on. So this is what I call common traps. Now let me give you some ideas on how to escape from them. So here we go. So first thing is recognizing a common enemy ahead of us. This enemy is what I call the bullshit management. Because it's very easy to end up in a situation that you're doing bullshit management instead of product management. But we need to understand what the heck bullshit management is. And I want to give you some clarity on that. So I name this as an art, actually, of spending the time doing things that bring no value, but drain all of your energy. And this has a very simple equation. The more bullshit you have to handle, the less time you have to create value, because you are too busy doing things that create no value. What are some examples of this guy here? Let me give you some things that happen, quite natural. So the very first one I call as the waiter approach. So, for example, when you go to a restaurant, the waiter comes to you and asks, what would you like to have? And then you look at the menu and you say, I would like to have some burger. And then the waiter may look at you and say, would you like to have some French fries together? They go very well. And say, yeah, maybe that works. Then you look at the waiter and say, yeah, but please, my burger, I want without bacon. Remove that. Oh, okay, all right. The waiter will just take the note and will not ask any question, just take the note, and then you take that and send it to the kitchen, and you hope they're gonna do it right. Sometimes the waiter doesn't write something, and then the customer gets pissed off, and so on. But the waiter is not really trying to solve the problem. Maybe the person should not be eating the burger. Maybe the person should eat something else. But the waiter is not trying to understand. The waiter is just serving. For a restaurant, that's fine. But for product management, imagine behaving the same. As a product manager or product owner, you go to the stakeholder and say, what would you like to have? And then you don't try to understand this. And you just make suggestions on top of that. That's a suicide. Because the following, the wants of business stakeholders are generally a little bit different than the needs of end users. You need to understand the needs of end users and partner with business stakeholders. Because business stakeholders aren't your enemies, but they are not your customers. They are your partners. They enable you to do something. And here, instead of being a waiter, it is better to act like a doctor, not a patient, a doctor. And I like saying a doctor because it's very easy also to invert the relationship between doctor and patient. For example, when you go to the doctor, if you are feeling bad, do you go to the doctor and say, hey, I came here today because I want you to do a surgery on my back, and it's precisely here, this part of the spine, just open, cut it. The doctor will look at you and start laughing at your face and say, okay, tell me what happened. And then you start sharing, and the doctor will tell you what to do. You just need some rest. You overdid over the last days. With the stakeholder relationship is the same. So you try understanding. You are the specialist. You work on the solution space, and you need to leave the stakeholder on the problem space. It's challenging, but possible. If you focus on gathering requirements, the result will be an extensive amount of things that makes no sense because you're going to be trapped. This is going to create a service provider relationship. And the other one is what I call consensus over the best for the product. What do I mean by that? It is very common to weigh all opinion in, and then you realize that you end up with the worst option possible. Sometimes a designer has done many tests with users and has realized a designer that is natural, that is intuitive, and bring to the team, and someone who has not seen any of that start weighing it, including the product manager sometimes, saying, yeah, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, and so on, and everything is possible. Then everyone needs to feel heard and put something there. Then you end up with a very weird situation with people that actually they just have an opinion. They don't have an expertise exactly on that. They are just trying to be part of the solution. And I like making this comparison when I go out for dinner with my wife. Sometimes she looks at me and she says, today I'm thinking of wearing high heels. What do you think? I say, well, if you want, it's not that fancy, the place, but if you'd like, I said, yeah, I would like to, but I'm going to wear high heels. And then out of the blue, she says, I'm doubting now. I think shoes would be better. What do you think? Flat shoes? I look at her. Well, flat shoes would be more comfortable for you, wouldn't they? I said, yeah, that's true, would be more comfortable. But I don't know. Then I look at her and say, let's meet in the middle. Right foot, flat shoes, right foot, then you wear high heels. Then you walk like this, and then everyone is happy. So you have one in this and one in the other. Consensus, right? So we agree, we meet in the middle. So in product, you need to search for the best option. Not everyone needs to agree. And this is where disagree and commit plays a critical role. And the next one is about the time spent explaining failures instead of learning from them. If you want to create a successful product, that means you are going to fail on the way. And if you're failing, you should be learning, and that's normal. But in a culture where you avoid failure at all costs, The consequence of that is that you start avoiding innovation together. So the question you ask is very important. When something goes wrong, what do you ask? Or what do you get asked? Is it like, how can we avoid this next time? Or what did you learn from it? I like the Netflix approach on this. They say, shed a light on successes. Yes, you need to celebrate success, but just shed a light. Failures are more important because success are rare, and failures, you need to pay attention. What is the outcome of that? So the CEO of Netflix, previously, Reed Hastings, he's not a CEO anymore, but previously, what he would do when there was a failure, the responsible for that would need to explain to the whole company what happened. And then Reed Hastings would look at this person and ask, what did you learn from it? And then the person would explain and say, good. He would not ask, how can you avoid this next time? He would focus on the learning aspect. That is more important. And what about the ability of saying no over focusing on goals? This one I'm going to give a different example. I was in Cartagena 2 weeks ago. I was on my holiday there and I arrived Sunday back to Germany. And in Cartagena, I had to practice saying no because I had the goal of enjoying my time, relaxing on the beach. And my first day there was in Getz-Money. It is in close to the historical center. So I had to walk around 1.5 kilometers to get there. But I realized that as I walked, people would approach me and start selling things. And they wanted to get me to buy something all the time. If I would say any kind of yes, some more people would come and try selling more and more. So the more yes I would say, the farther from the goal I would get. So I had to say no. I tried different ones. I would just say, no, Papa, no, no, no. It wouldn't work. So I had to understand that these people are trying to survive. And I had to give them an answer that they would be fine with, and they would understand I wouldn't buy. But I had to say that at least 100 times before I reached the beach. So it took me a while. And in product, it's the same. If you focus on giving yes to everyone, it's gonna be a problem. But if you help them say no to themselves and you focus on the goal and help them understand, then you don't hurt the relationship, but you get alignment. You don't need to get stakeholders happy all the time. It's not your job to make them happy. It's your job to make them satisfied with results. It's your job to create alignment. So these are things that commonly happen and distract teams quite a lot. But if you try answering the question, how products should be created? Going back to our previous scenario, you start always the same. There are always plenty of ideas for you to deal. What do you do? What if you would do a little bit different? Instead of spending a lot of time picking one idea, what if you could evaluate all of them? But you evaluate against your product vision and you ask one question: how does this relate to your product vision? And you say, it doesn't. Then you get rid of that. Then you ask another: how does this relate to our product strategy? It doesn't. You get rid of that. And you say, how does this help us right now reach our objective? It doesn't. Then you get rid of that as well. But then you realize that the others, they are quite helpful to you. So what about learning more in depth? Then here, I would say you start doing some high level discovery, trying to answer key questions. For example, looking at the customer's perspective, do we have evidence that is desirable or something that we could test? Oh, actually, we don't have any evidence. You can test, and then once you test, you realize, actually, it's not desirable. Then you can look at the other aspect, viable. Does it make any sense from our business side? Say, nope. And then something, can we actually do it? Feasible. Say, nope. Then you are already in a stage you have fewer ideas to explore with. Then you move on and you say, what if now we start running some more experiments to test usability Will users understand how to use it? Will deliver the value we expect to them? Here's where you can try different techniques to get users to test. You can use segmented tests. You can use the technical debt here as a means to accelerate learning. And if it doesn't create the value you expect, you just trash it. But if it does create value, you pay the debt off, and then you are fine. But here invest a little bit of more time. We are talking about some days. On the learn step, I would say talking in hours. But then you realize that not all ideas work. But then you go with something that really works and you get that to your product. You see, you started the same way. But in this case, you were dropping the bad ideas as fast as possible. And by saying bad idea, I say it is bad idea at this moment. And it's okay to drop that because you don't want to get distracted. In the future, that idea may be relevant, but then it will come back to your plate and you review it again. But don't keep that on your backlog because this will distract you. It will make it cluttered. You don't want to have that. And the secret is very simple. You need to have a development process or development approach, however you want to call it, that helps you identify the bad ideas, drop them, and focus on the good ones. And this is called product discovery. This is what enables you to accelerate value creation. To do that, you need to have some ingredients in place. I mentioned some of them, product vision, product strategy, and so on. But you need to use them. It's not about having product vision no one cares about. And here is where I want to do the second Mentimeter of the day with you before I share some applicable insights. So I'm gonna put this on the chat and then you have the chance of doing it. All right, so this is about looking at the right ingredients, not only if you have them, but if you use them. So what are the ingredients I call? Let me share the Mentimeter result here with you. I guess some of you are still, yeah, here we have it. So I like comparing product management sometimes with cooking because when you are cooking something, you may have the perfect recipe, but if you are missing the ingredients, you are not going to get to the best result possible. You may get to something, it's okay, but it won't be what you could achieve at its maximum. So for me, the perfect ingredients are these ones: vision, strategy. So vision is where you want to land. The strategy is which constraints you have. How do you want to get there? And the goal is the most focused aspect here for now. What is the digestible chunk you want to work on now? And then the business model. How does the dynamic work? The value proposition. Do you understand what are the customer jobs, their current tasks and pains and potential gains? And how do you connect your product to solving their pains and creating the expected values? Then it comes the assumptions. When you are developing something, do you name the assumptions you have, something that you imagine to happen, but you don't have evidence or not a strong one? Then test, learn from results, measure outcome. So these are the ingredients I see in successful teams, and many times it's missing. And when I see this result here, this kind of a spider web, my recommendation is a bit different. Some people ask, where do I start? Should I start with the vision? I would say no. That will require a lot of work to get stakeholders in. My suggestion is to start with the assumptions, because this is something you can do right now. You can just get with your team and say, what are we assuming to be true here? Then you ask this question, come up with assumptions, can prioritize them and say, what about testing this? And then you share results with the others. This is what I say is playing a card that will enable you to get another card. So that's very relevant and very helpful. All right. So now let me give you some more hints on how you can untrap your teams. Going back to the presentation now. Here we are. All right. So the very first thing is to understand your scenario, the overall scenario. And I'm not a person who deals well with complexity, so I try simplifying everything. I believe these two aspects will help you. How are you empowered to make decisions and progress without external influence? And how is your ability to learn? And I would say if you are unempowered and you don't have the learning speed fast, you become a feature factor. That's it. So you deliver and deliver and deliver. But if you can check the result that your features cause and you don't see value, but you are unempowered and no one wants to change, you become frustrated. And sometimes it happens the other side of the coin. The leadership is empowering the team, but the team is not taking the chance to learn. And I call this a self-trap because the team has all it needs, just requires to start learning and using the learning results to accelerate. But once you are empowered and you can learn, then you become a game changer. So no matter where you are, the most important is start creating some evidence that helps you justify not building something. I call this as maximizing your learning speed. So that's the very first step, understanding your scenario. And the other is applying some health check with your teams to help them understand different things. For example, we've just done this, but what about doing with your team and helping them see reality? You look at product strategy, product vision, and you understand what is the status quo of them. The same for product objectives and product principles. And then you see what it is, and then you ask, what if we try changing something here and measure the result? You don't need to change everything at once. The secret is moving one step at a time. You can do this for product management overall. You can do the same for product discovery. Take the value proposition. You check how often you talk to customers. I'm here in Hamburg right now because I needed to talk to some customers, and that was important to make it happen. How do you identify assumptions? So you look at the key aspects and you identify what you have. And these will enable you to progress. And you do the same with product delivery. You look to your implementation. What does it drive you? Do you build it right from the beginning? Or your approach is more like first build to learn and then to scale? Because then you can drop the ones that don't work. What about the result? Output is all that matters, or maybe outcome is all that matters. What about removing feature? Some people tend to think that the great product is the one with nothing to add. I'd say it's the contrary. It's the one with nothing to remove. What about failure? How do you deal with that? What about your product backlog? Do you have dinosaurs in it? Or maybe you only have what is required to achieve your goals? So doing these health checks help people around you see reality, and that enables you to progress. I want to give you two hints before I wrap up the call here, and then can take for some Q&A. So the first thing is imagining this very classic scenario. You have a product manager in the middle of everything, interacting with multiple stakeholders. Then requests come in, then the product manager says, yes, what happens? Then you get responsibilities. You say another yes, you get more responsibility. What if you have a different approach? Instead of just saying yes, you start saying no to requests that are unrelated to the goal. Then you can focus on the goal. Because the truth is, every yes you say is a new responsibility you get, while saying no is a decision you make to remain focused. So practice saying no. It's not only about saying no, it's helping the others understand why you say no and get them to say no to themselves as well when necessary. So this is a quite important skill to untrap your teams, because this unlocks focus to deliver valuable solutions. Now, the last tip here I want to give to you. Imagine a common scenario. In January, you have a product backlog like this. And then what happens? You talk to customers, you learn things, and so on. Then, curious enough, 3 months later, your backlog starts growing. New requests in, old items down, new items up. What happens in July? More or less the same. And then you have again another brutal backlog. In this case here, what is the team attitude? With that, everyone wants to run away. It's too stressful. No one wants to be there. But what if you do a different approach? What if you do like this? In January, you have the backlog like this. But then you talk to customers, you learn, and so on. Then you realize that some things are not relevant to your current goals. You get them out. You get only the new ones in. So new learnings in and old items out. And then you do the same again. So you keep your product backlog lean. So when you apply inspection and adaptation to remove distraction, you can focus on the goal and everyone is happy about it. And what I like saying is that product backlog items, they can age two different ways traditionally. The first one is like wine, and if it ages like wine, you need to bear a lot of confusion ahead of you. But if you treat them like milk, then teams can focus on what matters most. So keep the product backlog clean, because backlog items age like milk, not like wine. So the message I want to leave you is this. Just encourage your teams to step back, reflect, and challenge the status quo. You pick one item at a time to try differently, and then you learn from result, and then you change gradually. Small changes, they can lead to extraordinary results. And you always have a choice to make. You can bow to the status quo and get stuck. That is a choice. You can do this one, but then you cannot complain it was your choice. Or you could challenge the status quo and have a chance of a better tomorrow. And the question is, which one is yours? So that's what I had to share with you today. Hope it was valuable. We have some minutes here for some Q&A. And what I want to share with you also is if you like this kind of talk, I'm hosting a new cohort, which is live online sessions, 2 hours, 4 sessions. I call it Product Discovery, right? To help teams create value faster. The next one is taking place in September. And I want to give all of you here that are attending a special discount. So you can take place on this. The subscriptions are open, still in silent mode, and you can benefit from already an early bird discount that goes until end of this month. And if you want to know more about it, you can message me on LinkedIn. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much, David. I hear the noise.
Nice.
Amazing. Right. Thank you, David. Some really useful tips to take away there. Lots of things very much resonated with me. Always trying to encourage people to kill the backlog a bit more frequently, so spring clean it, to not let it become unwieldy and messy and noisy, and as David said, like milk, aging like milk. We have some questions, I believe. Was the first one, what do you mean by the term evidence? So what evidence, I guess, would you suggest people are bearing in mind when they're making use or making decisions relating to creating good products?
That's a very interesting thing. So let me give an example of my course, Product Discovery Done Right. I had an idea that was an assumption that people would like to learn how to do product discovery from me. That was my assumption because my post about product discovery got some resonance. That was the evidence, but that was weak evidence that someone would subscribe to a course from me. So what did I do? I put first a survey. would you like to attend a course like this? And I put how it would be and see how people would react to that. And then I got some ideas what would drive people to subscribe or not. But people saying they will do something and doing it's a little bit different. But I had a glimpse. I said, now let's get it real. So I created a landing page with the course and checked how many people would subscribe. The truth is, I didn't have the course, not even prepared. But I put 2 months from that moment, and I said, well, if enough people subscribe, I can create a course, but only if I get at least 10. So I got 15 subscribers. I said, yes, that's enough evidence. 15 people are paying to get my course there, and why not? Then I created a course. So I started with a post on LinkedIn, and then I went to survey. So this is going, that's why I say evidence. You start with week one, they're not convincing you to build, and then you say, okay, what is the next step? Then you get stronger evidence. I went to the survey and then to the landing page, and then after the subscription, that was enough convincing. Someone paid for that. Then I had to create a product. That's an example.
Awesome. Are there any other questions from anyone?
Feel free to ask any question. I don't bite. It's fine.
I don't have a question, but I'm definitely using bullshit management from tomorrow.
That's a good one. It is one
there
of my most read posts.
Are there any approaches that you use to help encourage the discussions about failure, the sharing of failures, and those sorts of things? Because we know it can be a difficult topic to approach with people because often failure is so stigmatized. So what techniques do you use to encourage people to leverage that data and help others learn from it?
I need to lead by example. So I need to walk the talk. So now in a leadership position, I do that first. So I start sharing my failures in front of everyone. And when I was not in a leadership position, I would try making it fun. I would start sharing. I would first I created an event in the company. I called the Fuck Up Night. So the Fuck Up Night, we would have some beers and then everyone shares a story. You don't have to, but just share and share what you learned. And it was quite cool actually.
Yeah, I love those failure fests, fuck up parties, war stories, whatever you want to call them. But leading by example, sharing a failure first, but then celebrating it, making it funny. Awarding the best failure and it becoming like a coveted thing. I failed hardest, and just encouraging it and destigmatizing it can be very powerful. Because I think the challenge is that those failures are so often really important information that can save a lot of wasted effort, a lot of reduce a lot of frustration building up. A lot of mistakes being repeated, because if we hide history, we are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And we have another question in the chat. Steve asked, can you give us some example of how you measure success for a product team?
I measure success by achieving goals the team commit to. And how do I do that? For example, now leading the team, I would come up with an objective. But the objective for me, I would set the direction. For example, make our product usable. That is an objective we have right now. Now we are going to the market. Now I'm to the team. I said, what can we commit to that? And the team will come up with an objective to that, precise one that we can measure, but it's about the outcome. And then within that, I will measure the result that the team achieved. I will not measure what they create, but what they enable our target audience to do. So there was an objective we set together. It's very important, this part. If the management is giving the objective to the team and saying, achieve it, then there is no commitment because the team was not part of that. Then it's hard to measure the result because the team won't feel accountable for it. We feel like you're forced to do it. So my tip is get together with management, set a goal, and the goal is oriented on the outcome, and then you have to deliver on that. So that is where I measure the result.
Thank you, David. There are any other questions for David? Comments, whatever.
All right, David, I think you might be off the hook, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your tips and tricks about how to untrap product teams. Great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Hope the attendees could benefit from that.
As mentioned, these sessions do go on our YouTube channel. I would be remiss not to mention our sponsors. So Butter, the tool you're using today, they are one of our sponsors. And if you'd like to give it a go yourself, you can get a free trial and 30% off your first 3 months of subscription. I can share the link to you for that. Obviously, David has already made himself or made you aware of a discount that you can benefit from for learning with him as part of his cohort, his product discovery as well. I will also let you know about a few of our next coming up guests. On our next 2 talks, we've got Julie Starling. She's going to be sharing about how to use data to ignite action. That's the 3rd of August, Monday, 3rd of August. And after that, a few weeks later, we have Trisha Broderick on navigating the learning journey. Trisha and I were singing karaoke together about a month back in Portland as part of Global Scrum Gathering, and I managed to convince her to come and join us in the session. So those are our next 2 sessions coming up. Joel, Mr. Bancroft, didn't spot you there. How you doing? Are you hiding away?
Hey, Chris. How are you?
I also caught up with you in Portland.
Yeah.
Are any of you out in Orlando in a few weeks' time? That's my next trip. I'm flying out to Orlando for Agile 2023 next Friday, actually, so that should be fun. Going to go and meet lots of people that I haven't met face to face before. All right. Well, I think we're a bit low in numbers. We were going to do a bit of a breakout session, but we're a bit low in numbers. I would love to see you all at one of our next sessions. And until next time, thanks for joining us, folks.